Erin Claire Jones, it is such a pleasure to have you here. I loved working with you on our human designs for me, my husband, and my 2 kids. And I felt like, gosh, if we could just like offer this technology to more parents, maybe they would feel more comfortable like hitting the marks when they needed to hit the marks, backing away when they needed to back away. Like I think a lot of motherhood can be, or parenthood can be like super intuitive. And then sometimes you just need, you know, a piece of paper to tell you, well, astrologically, you might consider this. So, can you tell us what human design is and how you share it with the world?
Yes, and the dogs are there. Sorry, y'all.
Yeah, you're a dog
I
mom now.
think, I know. Whew. I love that. I love that share so much. I think that it's so true. I think what human design does so beautifully is it reminds us that we're all so different, from how we make decisions to how we parent to how we work to how we eat, all of it. And so for those new, human design is a system based on your time, date, and place of birth that reveals your energetic blueprint on how you're wired to thrive when it comes to work, relationships, and life. And it kind of gives us each our own roadmap to like how to operate best. And I think it's such an amazing tool in parenting because you're really given tools to like know how to parent and support kids that are often designed very differently than you,
That's right.
and who are operating very differently than you. And so my intention with sharing human design with the world is really around sharing it in the most practical and empowering and accessible way, and like really giving people tools through human design that they can like use to live their best lives.
Yeah.
I find that most people don't want to learn human design. They're like, just tell me how I can use it. So I think that like our goal is really just to make it a super practical and empowering tool to really work in a way that feels good to you, to parent in a way that feels good to you, to be in a relationship in a way that feels good to you, and to really just like thrive by really honoring your own uniqueness.
So there are 4 different types of.
5. Yeah.
Oh, so there are 5 different types of people in this world. You would call, or types of people.
Types. Yeah.
Okay. Can you go into some of them, or all of them?
Yes. Yes. So if you want to look up your design, you can go to humandesignblueprint.com if you want to see what your type is. And there are 5 different types. And just know that like type is just the first piece. There is like it's so important. And also like there's so much underneath it that continues to distinguish us. So remind me, so you're a manifesting
Yeah,
generator.
I'm a manifesting generator.
You have a
My
projector kid.
I have a projector and a manifester kid,
Yes.
one each,
Okay.
and then my husband is a generator. So
I mean,
we
what a family. You represent 4 of the
I know,
types.
and you joked in our session together that we probably our dog is probably a reflector, meaning the 5th
So
type.
you're
Yeah.
like, you've got it
We
all
got
covered.
the
Okay, great.
whole world in our hands. Yeah, we got it. We're representing everybody. Yeah.
Which is amazing because I'll share about each type. And if you have any little nuggets on like whether or not you've observed them operating this way, it'd be useful to hear.
Okay, cool.
So let's start with you. So you're a manifesting generator. So basically what that means is that you're really meant to be a multi-passionate creator and doer.
I need to
You
tell you
have,
something.
oh my God, tell me.
Okay. Because of that little bit of information that you shared with me, you changed my life completely.
Oh,
Because I'm an actress and I'm a singer, and that has always felt really good for me. But this
yeah.
podcast was born of that understanding of myself. That, like, I'm meant to be doing a bunch of different things. And thank you for that permission. Because I think the world will have me think, like, oh, you don't give up, or blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of talk around, like, not being split focused, but actually my focus is meant to be split.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you'll likely get really bored if you're just like, I'm just doing one path. It's so beautiful to hear that. I think so much of the gift of manifesting generators is knowing that you're not really meant to be put into a box, fit into like a linear path. Like you're meant to pursue all the things that feel exciting, and obviously not all at once. Like you'll kind of get a sense for which ones deserve your energy when. But I think that it's not about like trying to just like make sense to others. It's like doing what feels right and exciting to you, even when it doesn't make sense to others. So I think a big lesson for you is embracing your multi-passionate nature, is pivoting away from things when they no longer excite you, is prioritizing your excitement and knowing the more lit up you are, the more you benefit everyone around you, including your kids for
It's a
sure.
huge
And also
lesson.
having strong big lesson. Like,
Huge.
and it's so easy to be like, these are all things I should do, but it's like, no, when you're enjoying yourself, it spills over, and especially with a manifestor and projector, it will give them so much energy. And then I would also just say boundaries, like, because you have such capacity to make things happen in your design, people might come to you wanting you to kind of do all kinds of things. But I think that really knowing that, like, when you're lit up, everyone benefits. When you're not, no one really does. And the last piece that I would actually share, or the second to last piece about being a manifesting generator, is that one of your gifts is moving very quickly and not handling every single step along the way. So it's really good to be surrounded by people that like support you in the step-by-step process in a way that kind of really frees you to move fast and be in your creative flow.
Yeah, it's really interesting because in this creative flow, right, I have
Yeah.
my executive producer Laura, who's like waving, because it's true. Like when I'm held in that, like container of support, I really can thrive. I can really just like bounce ideas. I can really, offer my goodness. But I genuinely, I can't, I can't do the nitty gritty. I can't. I wasn't born
And
to, as you so beautifully expressed to me.
and it will also make you unavailable for all the things that excite you,
Mm.
and so it's just like when you're able to delegate and hand those things off and have the right support around you, it frees you to kind of be all the things you're meant to. And the very last piece that I would share is that as a manifesting generator, you are meant to let things come to you. You're not really designed to chase after or force anything. Like, you're meant to wait for a thing to show up in your world, light you up, and then you go make that thing happen. And even if I might be remembering this incorrectly, but I feel like human design came into your world because of Emily Fletcher.
Yes.
She mentioned it too. Is that right?
Yeah, she's my meditation teacher and your good friend. She's become
Yeah.
an amazing friend to me, also. But I was originally introduced to her as my meditation teacher, and she loved she loved working with you. So she just
Yeah.
sent you my way.
But it's a good example of like a thing showed up in your world. You're like, oh, that feels good. I'm going to make it happen. So you're just like waiting for those things to show up and generate a response before you go after it. Got it?
Yeah, there's also something in my design that you mentioned that also really sparked this creative project for me, which was you said that there's something about my design that I'm meant to just live and fuck up and succeed and fuck up and succeed and then write the memoir about it so that other people can
Yeah,
do
that's so
better.
good. I have to write that down. Oh, it's so good.
I don't know what that was in the chart itself, but I really, really held that close because, like, I'm not here to be perfect. I'm just here to be, like, my authentic self, offering my missteps and, you know, victories so that so the rest of us can do better too.
I just love it so much. I love succeed, fuck up, write the memoir about it. It's so perfect. So that comes from a piece of your design called the profile, which is a deeper layer. And like, it's around the fact that like, you're just here to experiment. You're here to bump into things and make mistakes and like discover everything that doesn't work on your way to discovering what does. And like, when you really embrace this messiness, like, it can be pretty amazing. But if you're seeking perfection, it can be like awful. And your life experience carries so much value for others. Like, the mistakes you've made, the lessons you've learned, like, you're really meant to like share those things through a podcast, through a book. And so like, I would never underestimate the value of kind of sharing your own journey and the things you learned. Um,
I'm finding that to be
okay.
really true. But let's go on to the other
Yeah.
types.
Okay, we'll
Thank
keep
you.
going. Yes. So then we've got generators. So this will be your husband, right? So a lot of similarities. I mean, when you said four types, like, some people group these types together, so it's not wrong. There are just some distinctions. So generators are really, they also have all this kind of beautiful energy to build, create, and make things happen. And when they're lit up and excited, it gives everyone energy around them. There might be a little bit less of a desire in him to kind of do all the things at once. It might be a little bit more around like, I'm going to do this one thing and go really deep into it. And then I'm going to do this one thing. But I think you guys can really support each other by really helping one another prioritize your own excitement and knowing what a beautiful impact it will have on your kids. And then his strategy, like yours, is to respond to things. So it can be good for him to kind of wait for things to show up and light him up before he goes after it.
I forgot about that strategy piece, by the way. I'm so glad we're talking about it because I totally thought I was supposed to go and like hustle. I forgot. Thank you for that permission slip. I mean, human design for the win.
And also, like, again, once you get a clear yes, then you can like go make that thing happen quicker than anyone else. You're just like waiting for your gut to be like, yes, now this is the right thing, this is the right time, this is the right like expression of your energy. And I would say because you and your husband are both generators and manifesting generators and are here to respond to things, it can be really nice to give each other things to respond to. And so, an example of that would be like asking one another, not like, what do you want to eat for dinner, but rather like, do you want to go out or cook at home? Do you want to eat this or this? You know, like giving each other specific yes no questions allows you both to kind of drop into your truth so quickly.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go on to your projector.
She's my
So,
daughter.
projector daughter.
Yeah.
So, projectors are not here to be doers. So, if you expect her to keep up and do as much and move as fast, it could be disappointing. She is like such a natural leader, guide. Like she's so sensitive and attuned to other people, so wise about people, like just like so sensitive to energy in general. Her energy will very naturally ebb and flow, so time alone will be so important for her. Um, I would say one of the best ways that you can support a projector is to make them feel really recognized and seen. Like she's here to be invited, so just really like recognizing what she does well, inviting in her perspective, you know, doing your best to make sure she's surrounded by people that really see her. Um, and projectors often like tend to love anything that kind of helps them better understand people and how they work. But I would say don't expect her to keep up. Honor her need for time alone. Recognize her words of affirmation. All that stuff can be so supportive.
I know that you're a projector also, and like as we were
Yeah.
logging on, I just kept thinking to myself, I hope she feels invited in, you know, because I know that
Oh, you're so sweet.
I really like I try to offer that to my daughter all the time because my son, who we'll get to, is a manifester, um, and he doesn't need any invitation to be his full awesome self and etc. But I look at these projectors like you and like my daughter Paz, and I just always try to keep in my mind like just make sure they feel invited in. It's such a sweet essence, that vibe, man. You have it, she has it. It's so real.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like such a good reminder for us as projectors that like we're not for everyone because no one is, you know. And I think it's just more around like where do I feel the most valued and seen and invited, and like let me invest energy there. I would also say that projector energy often works really beautiful one on one. And so like really carving out time
Mm.
to kind of spend one on one time with your daughter can be really, really useful,
Mm.
as a way to kind of make her feel really recognized and seen.
Mm. Thank you.
Then we've got manifestors. This is your son, you said?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're kind of these like disruptive, innovative, just like firecrackers. Like they're kind of here to do things in their own way, on their own terms. They need freedom, autonomy, control. Like later in life, really good at like getting things started. Not here to kind of do all the doing themselves, but like getting things off the ground is a really beautiful use of their energy, and then kind of delegating. And I would say in terms of parenting a manifestor, like they're kind of here to initiate and like, you know, do things their way. So I would just give them freedom wherever you can. I think like confining them or telling them what to do in a really rigid way can be challenging. So just like maybe giving them options and allowing them to kind of lead the charge. Their energy will also ebb and flow. So kind of time and space alone is going to be so important for him. But I love that he is like the kind of big, bold presence you're mentioning, because like so many manifestors I've worked with like felt permission to be that when they were young. And then they kind of talk themselves out of it and like ended up kind of people pleasing and getting smaller. And then they kind of like come back into their bigness later in life. And so it's such a gift that you know his design, that you are supporting his design, because like you're just giving him such permission to be who he is from day one,
I
and
try.
like remind him. Yeah.
It's actually not so easy because he is a
Yeah.
natural born leader and 5. So so I have to really
Totally.
I very often, you know, the second he was born, like he lit up the whole room. I mean, it was like for real. Um
Mm.
and he does like he does, and he is that light wherever he is. So I try to really honor that, and sometimes it's dinner time.
Right. Right.
So
And like and I think that like it's, you know, it's definitely a balance. I don't know if it's always easy to like have a kid, you know, like especially as a manifestor when you're like, I'm the leader, you know, but I'm 5. So I think that again, it's just like wherever you can allow him to lead the charge, the better. You know, and I would just make sure that you build a really strong communication dynamic. I think where things can become challenging with a manifestor is that they don't feel freedom. and then they just end up like not communicating, and then there's just like so much distance created. So just keeping people in the loop, keeping each other in the loop. The last type is a reflector, who we think maybe is your dog. This is about 1%, so very rare. These people are deeply sensitive to their physical space, and they're always kind of taking in and magnifying the energy that they're around. And so you get a really good sense of how a team is doing, a company or a community, based on how that kind of person is showing up. So I really encourage them to be such ruthless curators of the people and places they're spending time in and with, or with and in. And they're very fluid. They're going to have days where they feel like you, days where they feel like your husband, days where they feel like a projector, like your daughter, like a manifestor. So like their job is not to be one thing or show up consistently, but to honor whatever feels like them that day, and to know that it's all of them. And the last piece that I would share about reflectors is that they just like see and sense things that so many people miss. And so it's really helpful to kind of be in places where their perspective feels really invited in and treasured.
Beautiful. I could see that for Bernardo. He does bark so much, so I'm like, oh no, is he like vibing off?
What are we doing?
What am I doing wrong? And he's a dog, so like sometimes I just have to not take that so personally. But so how do you find out what you are? Like, I mean, I think people in general know a lot about like astrological signs, and sometimes when I try to explain human design, I just say it's kind of like that, but that is not an astute explanation, and I just would love for you to maybe help us find a way. How did you find out what type we each are, and what are the, what's your process like?
Yeah, I think that human design is similar to astrology, but it's a different system. Like it pulls from astrology, from the Kabbalah, from the I Ching, from the chakra system, from quantum physics, like all to kind of give us this like manual of how we operate best. And so like astrologists aren't going to look at a human design chart and be like, oh, I get it. Or like, I can't look at a natal chart and like understand a piece of it, you know? And so they're very, very different. I think what drew me to human design is like, and this is actually not to say this is not an astrology. I just don't know astrology in the same way. But like human design is so practical. Like it offers us all this like juicy self-knowledge, but it gives us so many tools to actually bring it into our lives. And I think that so often we don't need more information. We just like need the right information at the right time to really kind of make transformations or make changes in our life. And so in our lives. So I think that if you are looking up your human design, you'll enter in this information, and then you'll kind of like, it will output this crazy looking chart. And it's kind of a map of how the energy is moving in your body. And so like I rely on the algorithm to kind of produce the chart, and then I analyze the chart. So when I kind of look at that, I can start to see, okay, what is your type? What is like, how do you make decisions? Like, what are your kind of weak, challenging areas? Like, what are all your strengths? So once that chart is outputted, I can kind of look at all the pieces. But it really is a pretty, like, it's a rabbit hole of a system. There's so much information in it.
Right, and those 5 types are just the very beginning. What are the other?
Just the very beginning.
Yeah. What are the other? So you were saying that there were decision making factors that.
Yes.
Tell us.
So there's so many pieces. There are what we call our inner authorities, which is how you're meant to make decisions. And so whether you're meant to kind of trust your gut feeling in the moment like you, or whether you're meant to sleep on things or talk things out, which is so helpful. There is something called our definition or our process. And that will speak to like whether or not you're more independent or whether you're more collaborative, whether you kind of need freedom in moving between different spaces and people. We have a thing called our open centers. And those will speak to the areas that we're often the most sensitive to other people's energy and the most challenged by, but also the areas that we have the most to learn. Then there's a thing called our channels, which are just like our innate gifts, the things that make us us. And then the last piece that I'd share, and know that this is like actually not at all everything that there is, but it's just like a good taste of the juicy, the like stuff to start with, is the profile, which we mentioned yours a little bit in terms of that kind of like experimentation piece and messiness. And that kind of speaks to how we're designed to best manifest our purpose.
And how do you feel like this can help parents? Like I know that so much of parenting, of course, is a matter of intuition, as I talked about, but like attunement, feeling seen is so important for a child and their development, and it also makes it sort of juicy and fun for a parent to feel attuned to their child. And I'm wondering how we can use human design as a piece of that process.
Yeah, I think that like there's so many applications of human design, but I think probably the most powerful one is parenting. only because like I think like you said with your son, it's like I just think we're giving them permission to be who they are from day one, you know? And so I think how you can use it in parenting is to learn how to best support your kid. And like honestly, what you'll likely learn is that they operate really differently than you. Like one small example is I had a manifesting generator client like you I had a generator client, like, not like you, like your husband. And he like was like very much like, I'm choosing one thing, I'm going deep into it. Like he was so into mastery. And he had a daughter who was a manifesting generator, and she was like trying everything. She was trying this sport, this art class, like, and he was so frustrated with her because he was like, why is she not choosing one hobby and sticking with it? And I was like, she's meant to try it all and she's meant to let go of it all. Like, it's just a part of her process. And so I think that's like one small example of just like supporting your kids and being exactly who they are and like not resisting it. And there's so many layers of like, how do they best eat food? Like how to best offer them, like how to communicate with them, rest, bedtime, like literally how do they best learn? Like, I just think it gives you a roadmap to knowing how best to support your kid.
As an example, my daughter Paz, the way she's supposed to eat according to her design is just like she sort of like has little meals every so often, and it's so true that that's how she eats. And if you ask any like, child, like pediatric dietitian, they'll tell you no, they have to sit down and it's three meals and one snack or whatever. It's so rigid, and it's just like not the way her appetite works. And so like I do vacillate between this experience where I'm like, oh, I want to be the good mom, the quote unquote good mom, meaning like I want to look good to other people or
Yeah.
like something or to the books. But the good mom really just like notices like she's growing, she's eating a varied amount of foods, and she likes to pick smaller portions. Slash, Erin Claire Jones told me that's her design. So, like, I can let her be.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I,
it makes it much more
yeah.
pleasurable for me to just let her be who she is, actually, than fight
And I
her.
think that that's exactly it. Like you're just giving, and whether it's like us doing it with ourselves or our teams or our romantic partners or with our kids, like you're just like give people permission to like be who they are and know that like everything that's right for them comes when they're coming, like when they're showing up from that place. And I think my experience of human design is that when I share human design with people, I'm rarely telling them anything new. I'm just like giving them a language for things they've always felt. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's why. That's why she's operating this way. That's why this hasn't worked for me. And so I think it's so validating giving us a real language to be like, oh, this is like why this has worked and this hasn't. And this is a way that I can use to just find more flow in my life.
You once mentioned, like, there are sleeping habits that are particular to each design or just sleep in different rooms. Can you speak on that? Not to
So,
complicate anything for the
oh my
parents
God,
out
no,
there.
I know. I love bringing this up mostly just to destigmatize it. I think that there's a recommendation for certain types, but it's kind of for everybody. So the types that it's like really, really definitely for are like the projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. But like when I look at your design, like you're a hyper empath. So like time alone's going to be really important for you too, you know? And so the idea is that
Hyper
there's
empath, man.
hyper. What an amazing gift.
Yeah.
Also can be overwhelming without sufficient space for yourself. So what I
Mm.
would say is that the recommendation is to actually sleep in your own energy and sleep in your own space. And that could look like a separate bedroom that's yours. That could look like going to bed earlier, waking up later. That could be could look like sleeping on a couch one night. And I know it's not always financially feasible or desirable to do that. But the idea is that when we're able to kind of recharge in our own space, it's so much easier to kind of wake up as ourselves because we impact each other when we sleep, with our energy. And so honestly, when I share it with people, there's often a look of like longing in their eyes where they're like, is that allowed? And so I just think it's an amazing thing. And I just like my recommendation, if it's feasible and desirable, is like, I find it's really nice to have your own bedroom as like your default. And then like when you want to sleep together, choose to sleep together, but it's not the default. And I think that there's like something so valuable for each of us in kind of recharging in our own energy.
Well, recently Dan started snoring, and he's like, we have like an extra bedroom where I can just sort of like knock him into, and I have to tell you, we've been sleeping so well, and I've been giving myself permission to like sleep in the morning, and it's so true that I wake up so much more myself. Just so much more myself having had that space, especially because you're right. I am a hyper empath. I missed that on my chart actually. There's so much more to learn, and I'm like, is it something that you can these charts you can get them online, right? You can go and enter your information and get them online, but really it does require someone to translate it for you. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, you can look up the chart for free, 100%, but it's not an intuitive looking chart. You're not going to look at it and be like, oh, like I get it. You know, it's just like, what are all those numbers and colors and all those weird shapes? And so it's really nice to have somebody share it. And also, Google's like a weird thing. Like, you can go Google the different pieces, but like, there's just some like weird information out there about human design and also weird information about like everything, you know?
Yeah,
And so,
don't
like,
Google that much, guys.
just it's I think that like I mean I can't tell you how many sessions I've had where somebody's like I read that like I can't do this and I was like what. And so like I think that I would really like if you feel inspired I would find somebody that you really resonate with, you know, and learn from them. And I think it's like human design is very much meant to be an empowering system and not a limiting one. And so also somebody that speaks about human design in a way that feels really empowering and expansive.
Yeah, I found that like you know, reading our charts with you, you had the ability to sort of say, you have this, open system that correlates to their open system. So I just want to give you a heads up about that. Um,
Yeah.
I wish I had my chart so that I can like be more specific about that. But maybe you can give me an example. Like, how do you, when you read these charts, how do you start to weave the stories together as the practitioner?
You know, I think at this point I've just been doing it for like I don't know, this is like my 8th year, I believe, maybe my 7th year, but I think that like it's so part of me now that like no session is the same, you know. I think that it's so inspired by like what they're going through and then I kind of can look at all the charts and like pick out the pieces that are most supportive to that. But yeah, I think that there's like a much more holistic view. I think that like for example, in terms of what you're referencing is that like you can look at how you're impacting one another with your energy. So you're somebody who's very empathic, very sensitive to other people's feelings, which means that you can kind of take it and amplify the feelings of the people around
Right.
you. And you might have a husband or a son or a daughter that like projects their feelings out into the world and like sets the emotional temperature of the space. Is that the one you're
So
thinking of?
both my husband and my son project their feelings out into the world, and both
Yes.
myself and my daughter are like,
Amplify.
yeah, amplify. Which like it sounds like it's nice to be empathetic, but like actually, if I'm not creating boundaries around my empathy, it just turns into overwhelm and yuckiness for everyone involved.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just like mirror back where they are, and then you might kind of amplify it, and then they amplify it back to you, and then it just becomes this like really emotionally intense thing. And so, like, I would say in a moment like that, it's so good for you to physically take space
Mm.
and be like, wow, I feel like a little bit overwhelmed. Like, I'm gonna just like go to the bathroom or go for a walk and like kind of recharge and reset, you know? And so, it's really good to kind of be aware of how you're being impacted so you're not getting lost in things that are not your
I
own.
think that's like in general a fantastic bit of information or advice for mothers. But I keep going back to this chart and this way of working really does offer like a permission slip to just do the right thing.
Totally.
Meaning like
For you.
for you, if you want to sleep by yourself, you can. Like, fuck society. Like, you don't have to sleep in the same bed. If you want to, you can. But if it's not making you a better person, like, please. I just mentioned that Dan and Ness both
Project out their
project
emotions.
out their emotions. They're not projectors, but they project out their emotions, and both Paz and myself sort of, you know, uh,
Amplify.
amplify, meaning like we take it in and then we like make it bigger. Um, it does feel like boys versus girls in a way in that scenario. Is that just us, or is that a thing?
That's just you.
Oh, okay, cool.
Um, I think that like, you know, I mean, I'm not looking at like a study of all society, but like in our dynamic, we're the opposite, you know, like I project out my emotions, my partner amplifies. So like, I haven't seen any kind of patterns in terms of like, oh, like more women have this emotional sensitivity or more men have this. Like, I think that we all experience it really differently. Like some of us might be more open to it than others, but it is not, yeah, it's really it's less focused on gender. But
Hmm.
again, the way we can express it can be so different.
Can you tell me more about these open or closed centers? Is it the chakras?
Similar to, so there are 9 different energy centers, and they will either be white and open in our design or colored in and defined. And the areas that are white and open are the areas where we are the most sensitive to other people's energy. And the areas that are closed and defined are the areas that we project out our energy and impact others with it. And so it can be so useful to know that within our own design in terms of relationships, but also I think just, in our own journey, it's so useful to know where we're sensitive to other people. So, like, for example, some things that you could be taking in from others, emotions, like we've talked about, if you have an open emotional center, you could be particularly sensitive to other people's stress, which could lead to like you being in a hurry for anything and everything. And so a big lesson for these people is that not everything is worth hurrying for. Not everything deserves your urgency. Some people are very open to other people's fears. And so they can kind of get lost in other people's fears. You're actually one of those people. And it's really good for you to know that like not every fears you feel is your
Oh
own.
my
And
God,
so just like
Erin,
really having that.
not every
Yeah,
fear I fear is my own at all.
exactly.
It's so intense how many times I have to be like, wait a second, that's not mine. Like, I'm not
Not
in
yours.
war torn Ukraine. I'm here in, New York City.
And
Whew.
it's just useful to know what those things are because it brings so much more awareness of like, wow, I'm getting lost in all this stuff. That isn't mine. Some people can be really sensitive to like, this is also yours, like other people's opinions.
Yeah.
I'm just actually doing
Thank
yours
you.
just for to give context. Like the opinions is that like you're somebody who's meant to be really open minded,
Yeah.
like really here to see things from many different angles. But like the shadow for you is like, I've got to have an opinion, I've got to be certain, like I've got to back it up. And the gift for you is like, I can see all the perspectives. And so and then also like the last piece that I would share as an example of an open area is that you're really open to other people's inspiration and excitement. And so you might find sometimes when you're talking to somebody about an idea that's exciting to them, you might be like, yes, I want to do it, like I'll do it with you. And then you might walk away and you're like, I don't want to do that thing, but their excitement was incredibly infectious. And so it's just like really useful to know what energy we're taking in so we don't make decisions off of it and we don't get lost in energy that's not our own. So I just find that really having a language and a framework to understand those areas that we are the most sensitive is so, so useful in helping us kind of like find our way into the wisdom of these areas and not kind of get lost in the shadowy
I
expressions.
love it so much. Well, I just wanted to like touch on the fact that like because children are growing at such a rapid pace, of course I could see the second my son was born, whoa, this is like this is an energy like, and I could see with my daughter like, wow, I feel so drawn in. And it's
Hmm.
so true. Like this manifester that I have, this son that I have is so focused and driven and full and a leader. And my daughter, from the second she was born, really invited me in. And then I invited her in. And she's peaceful and she's sweet and she's soft. And I mean, she's also like sassy when she needs to be, but they change. It's not a matter of
Yeah.
energy. Also, people get dinged up every now and then by a pandemic and by whatever else. And I
Yeah.
wonder, do people touch base with you often when it comes to this, reading the family's charts and hey, I feel like he's
Yeah.
fallen off and he's really taking other people's opinions or whatever else.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that people express their design differently as they grow. And I think that like human design is amazing and that it gives us this framework of how we operate best. But like, I love talking to people continually because like different things will come up because they're in a different place and different things are happening. And I just find that we can like never hear this information too many times. Like I just feel like it's like, oh yes, like I forgot about this. Like there's just so much kind of juicy stuff. And depending on where you are, different pieces will resonate. And so I think it's an amazing thing to keep coming back to. Like I never recommend like exploring human design just once. Like it's a thing to kind of keep returning to. So it really kind of builds an awareness within yourself of how somebody operates and how you operate.
You know who's the same for the past 15 years is my husband.
Yeah.
Sorry, my nose. My husband, who's a generator, like he really,
Just doing the same thing.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
been a lawyer this entire time. He's gotten better and better and better. He's focused,
It's
he's
amazing.
focused. Like I see that I can see in my kids, obviously, because they're growing, that, oh, I need to like touch base on this. And I'm also their steward, I'm in
Totally.
charge of helping them feel totally seen and accepted. So I think touching base all the time. But with my husband, I feel like as a generator, he is such a generator. He is such a doer. That part of the generator where you say like they go to sleep happy after a good long day's work.
Yeah,
Oh my
and using up
God.
their energy.
Using up his energy is so true.
Mm.
I had to actually really like wrap my arms around that idea because I would always be like, fun and blah, 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 like let's go on a vacation. And like, he likes vacations. You're like, okay. But like, he actually feels totally in love with
Most
his
satisfied.
work. He loves,
Yeah.
he really genuinely loves working and being of service in this very particular way. And I had to really accept that that's not any fault of his. Actually, that is his design.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's like we just stop making people wrong for being who they are, and we just like give them permission to be different than us. And so it's like such an amazing tool for individual alignment, but maybe even a more powerful one for just relationships, whether it's with your kid or partner or team.
Especially because it starts with your own acceptance of yourself, I think. Like,
Totally.
I'm not going to go around like ordering other people's blueprints. I guess I could, but I have to first get in touch with who I am.
Yeah.
And if I accept me, it's a lot easier to accept the people around me. If I
Yeah.
know me, it's a lot
Totally.
easier to accept myself. So,
Totally. Totally. And just know that everyone will do things differently.
where can we find you and learn more about you and human design?
So you can find me on Instagram at Erin Claire Jones and Human Design Blueprint. And if you'd like to get started, a beautiful way is the blueprint, which has evolved since you got yours, but it's now like a 55 plus page written guide to your unique design that really explores all the most essential pieces in the most kind of like practical, empowering way. It's like this is your operating manual. It's meant to be a like book all about you that you keep returning to. I'm happy to offer a discount code for your community if you
I would
like.
love that
Would you
so
like
much.
that?
Yeah.
Do you want to do Mom Curious? Is there,
Yeah, maybe that would be
yeah,
great. Mom curious.
that will be the code. And then I also offer sessions, not a ton of them, but that's on the blueprints on humandesignblueprint.com. And if you'd like to book a session or a workshop, that's on erinClaireJones.com. And we can always use it to dig into you individually, a partnership, or your family.
Yeah, which is what I did. And I found, especially during the pandemic, I found that getting the blueprint, I think it was March 2020, and then
Oh my God.
yeah, I think about 6 months later we really worked
Sat
through
together.
it, yeah, and sat down, and I found that was really anchoring, and
Yeah.
it was helpful. It was really helpful for me to hear, oh yeah, that is the way these kids are. Oh, that is the way my husband is. Oh, that is the way I am. Oh,
Totally.
and that's totally cool. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I'm probably going to book another session.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, because I think, like they're different, I'm different, and I have new ears for this work. So thank you for coming on and for, for writing these manuals on each of us. My parents would always say, like,
Yeah.
there was no book on parenting. And, like, of course, there was, like, libraries full of parenting books. But really, everyone's so different, as you said.
Totally.
And every parent is so different. So the more we can, like, concretize what those differences are,
Yep.
the more we can accept them and love them and work with them. And I
Exactly.
really, I have a feeling like it's a big feeling. But if we can, like, offer our families that type of love and acceptance, and that can reverberate out, we
Yeah.
really have a shot,
Totally agree.
Yeah. So thank you.
It's like the best place for it to start. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure to connect with you.
Yeah.